I have Dr. Bill Campbell with me today, and I have been waiting to do this podcast episode because this man is dedicated to the cause of researching menopausal women and finding out more about our journey. And I have been lapping up the research, the menopause series he's been putting together, and I know anyone listening in is going to want to tune in to the great work that he is doing. So, we are going to chat today and give you some more information so you can learn more, and then of course like point you in the right direction so you can keep following him to stay up to date with the latest research and what's going on in our space. So firstly, Bill, thank you so much for being here today.
Yes, thank you for having me and for being interested in this area as well.
Yeah, I'm very interested being right in the middle of it myself. But firstly, rather than me introduce you, I just actually want you maybe to give us a little bit of background as to, you are a fat loss researcher, but why you now are focusing on this space, menopausal women.
All right, so my career has almost always focused on females in fitness, females in fat loss, but for much of my career it was in younger metabolically healthy females. And I started my career when I was in grad school doing obesity, women with obesity. So that research as well.
Mhm.
And I would say over the last year to 2 years, shifted my research to focus on women going through menopause, even prior to menopause, even postmenopausal, but kind of around this phase, but still looking at body composition changes. So, what happens to body fat? What happens to muscle mass? And why does it seem that, and again, I can't say the research says because we don't have research in this area, why does it seem that women do gain excess body fat during this time?
Mm.
And even more frustratingly, why does it seem that they can't lose it with strategies that have worked in every other study I've ever done? Or in these women, why are the things that they used to do to lose excess body fat now not working?
Sure. And that's, of course, like, my next question is like, I suppose, and that's what you're uncovering. Why? Why are we so challenged? Like, why is menopause so hard? But we don't really know the answers to that yet.
Um, exact. Everything is anecdotal. I can
Mm.
point to no research. And let me also suggest two things. One, the women that I serve are women who embrace a fitness lifestyle.
Mm.
So that's where we have no research. We have thousands of studies in women going through menopause or just menopause research. We
Mm.
even, thankfully, now today have quite a few studies in women's physiology, women in exercise studies. But when you try to pair or match women who are living a fitness lifestyle and going through menopause or have gone through menopause, it's just never been looked at. So it's very frustrating. And also, I'm sure I'll be talking about some of the the problems that women have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I want to make the point, not every single woman will have the problems that I'm trying to find more out about.
Mm.
Some women
Mm.
go through menopause with really no problems, and that's
Mm.
great.
Mm.
um, and it's funny, for that type of experience, a lot of times women will look at the others who are struggling and they'll think, well, they're just not working very hard, or they're
Mhm.
obviously overeating, or
Mm.
they're they're lazy. Not
Mm.
everybody says that, but it's all the perspective. And likewise, the women who are really having a rough time, I think they think that, well, that every woman struggles with this, and
Mm.
that's not the case. So it's definitely not a one size fits all in terms of the menopause transition experience.
I think you put it into, was there three categories that you like to group them into?
Yeah, I love I'm very proud of the fact that I'm like a science communicator. Like, I love spending all my time reading research and then trying to distill it to reach as many fitness professionals. So yeah, this is how I categorize the three general experiences. There are cruisers, grinders, and train wrecks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to suggest that some women are train wrecks. Somebody yelled at me for saying that. No, it's their experience that looks like a train wreck. So cruisers are the type of experience where they're going through menopause and they don't really have to alter their training. They're not they don't have joint pain, they don't have depression, they're able to recover from their workouts, they're not gaining much weight, so it's just not that big of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
The other extreme is the train wrecks, and
Mm-hmm.
I lived with a train wreck experience
Mm-hmm.
for a couple of years, which is really what got me focused on this. That would be a woman who just is in a really bad place, to say it politely, I guess. Some of the things that they can experience is a lot of weight gain and then not able to lose it,
Mm-hmm.
elevated anxiety, sometimes clinical depression, joint
Mm-hmm.
pain, energy levels that are just in the garbage, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the middle, which is probably where most women are the grinders. Hey, going through menopause, yeah, I gained a little bit of weight, but they
Mm-hmm.
can still lose it just by working a little harder. Maybe they
Mm-hmm.
don't recover as much from their workouts, but they're still able to kind of not alter their workouts too much. So one of the biggest problems that I see, since I'm kind of relatively new to this age group in terms of research, there's a lot of black and white or absolute statements and advice given as
Mm-hmm.
if everybody needs to fit under this one rule, or make sure everybody does this, or make sure no don't ever do this. And
Yes.
I think that creates a lot more confusion, and I would even say it adds anxiety to an already anxiety ridden situation for some listeners, because they're getting a lot of mixed messages. So I'm I will provide context to almost everything I say, which is very boring and does not play well on social media. That stuff never goes viral, but I think it's important to actually bring some context to the discussion.
Well, I've been bothering you a bit about that, just exactly for that space. I've seen, like, I've been on my menopausal journey for probably 8 years now. And I think right now it is more confusing than ever before. And, I've messaged you a number of times, like, what about this? And what about, because of these absolutes and the clickbait and the, things being taken out of context or directed at everyone. And I think this is why there's so much confusion and I know more than the average person, because I'm studying and being educated. So the normal person would be so confused, and I think this is causing so much more drama and frustration because then no one knows what to do. So myself, I just can't believe, kind of, I suppose, in my own circumstance, what I see on social media these days. What would you say to people listening to that, are feeling that way? How do they navigate what they're seeing?
I, yeah, my advice would be don't trust any one person as if they
Mm,
have all of the answers.
mm,
I would suggest follow some scientists, and of course I'm biased,
mm,
and what are they saying? But also
mm,
scientists sometimes don't ever live outside the lab, so they don't
mm,
live in the real world. So also
mm,
follow some, fitness professionals, follow you,
mm,
what you're saying, and
mm,
just kind of think, okay, this person's saying this, they have a good reputation. This person's saying this, they have a good reputation. Then I would say, now you as an adult make your decision. Like you're getting your stuff from good sources. And one thing, always ask too, to this kind of is a good test for um, getting rid of the scum of the industry. What are they trying to sell you?
yes.
Um, Now I have educational products that I sell.
Mm,
So it's not like I'm not against I'm not against selling products. I have
mm,
products,
mm,
but just be aware of what is somebody trying to sell me, and is that tainting their message?
Yes.
And again, fitness professionals, they're selling fitness services. I love fitness professionals. That's who I train at the university to. I train future fitness professionals.
Mm.
But it is something to be aware of. I think that really helps, if you identify what are they trying to sell me, and is that impacting their message to me.
Yes, true. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I kind of advise people to look at the credentials, and then you're going to actually have to, like you said, is this aligning with me? And then test it for yourself. Sometimes you do actually have to, well, this is what I found in my experience. Take some of this and then test it and see what the outcome is like on yourself, and then you can decide whether it is, does it make me feel better or doesn't it, actually put it to the test and make your own decision on it as well. That is, sometimes something we need to do ourselves. So that's kind of where I sit with it. But okay, so obviously hormonal shifts and, is really behind these challenges we're facing. Um, do you think that, well, and maybe we don't know this yet, but do you think that the hormone changes are affecting our metabolism, like as we journey through, or we don't know that yet?
Um, well, there's a debate on. Well, let me start with there's a big debate on even if hormones are causing some of these problems. There's two camps.
Yes.
Some people say hormones or menopause has nothing to do with anything. It's just aging. And this is from the perspective of body composition. So what's happening to body fat levels?
Right.
What's happening to lean mass or muscle mass levels? So there's
Mm-hmm.
that debate. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that that's a debate is because it's a very hard question to answer, because you can't separate aging from menopause. Like you can't pause your age and then watch what happens during menopause. And
Mm.
it's very, other than surgery, you can't induce menopause,
Mm-hmm.
or you can't start menopause while you're aging. So it's tough.
Mm.
Um, I happen to believe that the change in hormones is what's causing a lot of the body
Mm.
composition changes, and the changes are an increase in body fat and a
Mm.
slight loss of lean mass over a relatively short period of time
Mm.
that then evens out.
Mm.
So in terms of metabolism, what we know about metabolism is that it's closely tied to lean mass. So
Mhm,
if you lose lean mass, your metabolism goes down, and
mhm,
if you gain lean mass, your metabolism will rise. So with the belief, and again, this is I appreciate people who have a different opinion on this, but I believe there is a loss of lean mass that happens
mhm,
during the menopause
mhm,
transition. Doesn't It's not significant. It's not like
mm,
5-10 pounds,
mm.
but if you lose lean mass, your metabolism will slow down. So
Yes.
I believe that the hormones, particularly estrogen, estradiol, is responsible. This declining level is responsible for part of the lean mass loss. Now,
Mm,
there can also be secondary actions as well. The hormonal changes cause less energy. Guess
mhm,
what you don't want to do when you have low energy? Work out. So now
mm,
your workouts aren't as intense if you're not skipping workouts. Also, sleep is
mhm,
being there's sleep deprivation through this time, and sleep deprivation is working against everything relative to body composition. It causes weight loss resistance, can cause suppression of muscle protein synthesis. So that's a long answer to yes, I think hormones are responsible for a loss of metabolism, but
yes.
I have I'm doing a case series studies now. We've tested, I think, 7 women so far, that are all around the age of 40s to mid 50s, 40s and 50s. It's very rare. It's only one so far that even has a slow metabolism out of this
Right.
group. So I'm not seeing in a small sample of women
Mm,
a suppressed metabolism.
mm, interesting. And so I agree with you. I think, having lived this myself, hormones are definitely part of my journey. I can just talk from my experience, because I know obviously insulin resistance can be a factor, and I personally had some insulin resistance. I'm not sure if I had built that up from being an athlete and just kind of maybe loving carbs too much, or but I had a little bit of insulin resistance myself that I kind of broke down over the time. But I know insulin resistance is kind of one of those things that we can see rise in this time as well. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that relationship?
You definitely, in the research that I've read, it's definitely a common change with menopause, insulin resistance, and we also have an increase in cardiovascular disease risk.
Mm.
What I am curious about is, and I guess you would fall into this because you were living a fit lifestyle, right, going into this, and you still
Yes.
have that. I wonder
Yes.
at scale, is that somewhat prevented in women who are living a fitness lifestyle? Because again, we don't have data on this. Whenever
Mm.
anybody talks, this is what happens in menopause, they're not
Mm.
referring to women who have lived a fitness lifestyle because there's
No.
no research in that
Mm.
population. So they
Mm.
don't know. And
Mm.
I think I'm one of the first people to start this, and I'm doing it at a very organic level, literally case studies to start.
Mm.
We have a menopause fitness survey coming out next week. So I'm just starting this.
Mm.
Um, but that's my question. Does a fitness lifestyle prevent this? And I'll say this: one would think that a fitness lifestyle would prevent weight gain.
Yes. Well,
Whew.
it doesn't work that easily. I can.
Not in at least not in a certain subsample of women. And this is what just floors me as a fat loss
Mm,
scientist.
mm,
It
mm,
shouldn't happen. Um,
mm.
I just had a message the other day, and this is add this one to the thousands of women that I've communicated with over the last 2 to 3 years. This woman gained, I think, 7 pounds of body weight over like 6 months. Now she was a very small woman, so like from a 120. And yeah, what is that in kilograms?
About maybe 58.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe 50.
So gained about 3.5 kgs of body weight in this woman's fit. So that's a lot of body weight for a small frame and somebody who didn't change anything. The only thing she says she changed was she increased her exercise and
Mm-hmm,
still gained weight.
mm,
Now, that does not make sense, and it is not what you see in the research literature. It's not what I've seen in my own lab. But I get this story from fitness professionals, from women that I think know what's going on in their bodies. And
mm,
at some point, that's hard to ignore. I don't have an
mm,
answer. That's
mm,
why I'm doing the research.
mm.
And I saw it firsthand in my wife. I could not help my wife lose weight, and I'm a good fat loss researcher, and I was not able to help her lose fat, which was very humbling and did not sit well with me.
No, I can imagine how frustrating that would be. I suppose, in my journey, because I didn't know, like I know so much now, but when it's all started happening for me, I definitely wouldn't have been eating the protein and we'll talk about the menopause nutrient in a minute, but I definitely wasn't eating the protein that I should have been. So I don't know if that made a difference, and I didn't know anything really. So, like you mentioned before, sleep and recovery and maybe dialing in. I think this is where, as a society, we need to get in front of it and educate women. So, as we're moving into our 40s, we're ticking the boxes on, there's some supplements that can, help us to recover and be on track and, all of the things like, so I don't know if it's that we have to be ticking all the boxes like to make sure we're on track, and if we're not doing that, then this is what's causing this cascade of effects. I don't know either. I'm just speaking from my own experience, but this is a great segue into protein being the menopause nutrient. I actually coined that off you and I use it now.
Ah, I
So
like it.
you can
Yeah.
maybe like talk to us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of my career studying protein from grad student to early in my career, and I've done several protein intake studies, females and males, and essentially there's focusing on women going through menopause. We know that they gain excess body fat across the board. We also know that women are well, and they also lose a little bit of lean mass. And we know that women going through menopause, the research tells us they don't eat enough protein, so they're protein deficient.
Mm-hmm.
So protein it addresses all of this by increasing protein. Well, now we're getting an optimal amount. Protein is an anabolic nutrient, so it helps build lean mass. And we have several studies that have reported in menopausal women, peri and post, that optimizing protein intakes, going from an insufficient to even still being lower than what I recommend, but just improving protein intake is enough to cause fat loss, which that's surprising, and increasing lean mass, which that's not as surprising.
Mm.
So protein can make up for a lot of the negative body composition consequences that occur during
Yeah.
menopause.
Well, I am just about to run a free protein challenge. So I did one in January and I had 900 people sign up for it. So
What is
I
it?
just, yeah, I run it for like a week to help. This is where, as a nutritionist, I see people miss the mark as well. And even now that protein is having its day, women just don't understand, how much they need to eat or how to actually do it. And I know that was one of the challenges I had when I started realizing that I needed to like prioritize my protein. I was like, how do I get it all in the day? And so over the week, I just kind of helped them with like tasty recipes, hit their protein, and within a week, these people see results. The cravings subside, they feel satiated, and their energy changes, and just in 1 week. So it's really quite exciting to do. But I, like you, am talking about the menopause nutrients day in day out, because it's one thing I really didn't understand. Just like our training having to change. So you know I'm probably, and I know you are too, because I heard you talk about running, your 1 mile. I'm a fan of both the strength and cardio training, because your heart still needs to get worked out. Maybe talk to us about, the difference in exercise changing in this stage.
Well, one, I want to go back to the context of like the cruisers, the grinders, and the train wrecks. For a cruiser, a message is often given that you have to change what you're doing now that you're going through menopause. Well, that's probably not true for that woman who is able to recover, um, who enjoys what she's doing. So, again, that's where I don't like the black and white messaging that says you have to do this now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if you don't? What if you don't have to?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're able to recover, you love what you're doing. I would say don't change that. Now, I'm always going to advocate that resistance training is the foundation mode of exercise, but I'm also going to say it's very important to train for aerobic fitness as well to increase VO2 max. So it's not like one's not important. It's just that I think the broader I lean into more resistance training because that's the message that I think more people at this point need to hear. But your heart is just as important as your skeletal muscle health.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when do we need to change? So this is where, and this is just my opinion because I can't point to research. If you're in a very bad place right now, again, having a train wreck experience. You have no energy, possibly joint pain, anxiety, maybe depression. I think it's perfectly fine to say, okay, it's going to be okay to step back from my heavy training schedule Does that mean I'm embracing a sedentary lifestyle? No. It
Mm,
means that this is a time for the next week, month, 2 months where I got to focus on just becoming normal or functional
mm,
without the added stress of I have to drag myself to the gym. I have no energy anyway.
mm,
Um, with every intention, focusing on your health, and then getting back there. So I always like to think when you look at the trajectory of your life, you see yourself lifting weights, you see yourself doing cardiovascular exercise activity, you see
mm,
yourself doing agility training, mobility work. So it's by no means an excuse to be sedentary. It's just
mhm.
an acknowledgement that some women are in a very bad place, and the burden of also having to exercise every day during this time. And again, I want to stress short period of time. I think my opinion is it's okay to dial back what you've been doing on the intensity and the volume if you're in that situation.
Yes, to help you feel better again.
Yes. And I think there probably when you're younger this doesn't matter, but matching your exercise with your ability to recover.
Mm,
So, and that's hard. That's a very subjective statement because, well,
mm,
you can measure your exercise performance. Hey, I ran a kilometer this fast. I lifted this much weight. Well, recovery doesn't really work like that. So recovery to me, just in general, is I don't feel exhausted from the workout that I did yesterday, and I'm pretty excited about going back to the gym or going back to my exercise the next time.
yeah. So that being said, you definitely, there's some question that as we age and like over 40, 50, that our ability to build muscle is like harder. What are your thoughts on that?
That's true. It is you cannot build muscle to the same extent as what you could in your 20s and 30s. However, that
Mm-hmm.
is a moderate or mild difference. You can still build plenty of muscle. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not like it's impossible or futile. So
Mm-hmm.
you can build muscle in your 80s. We have literally research people, women, men in their 80s can build muscle well when they're new to resistance training. But to say that hey, you can build just as much muscle as when you were younger, that would the research does not support that.
So we have three daughters, and I'm proud to say they all lift weights now. The youngest is 20, and so and this is, I think, as a society, something we need to do better at. So if we are teaching our younger girls to start lifting earlier, this is going to help them build better quality muscle for aging. Like, how does that work?
So yes, well, one, if and I love the 20-year-old lifting weights. One thing we know is you basically will have your bone mineral density, your bone mineral content that will be set for life in your early 20s,
Mm-hmm.
maybe mid 20s. So whatever you have by the 20-ish years old, the rest of your life, it's a race to maintain it. So that is where resistance training is the best form of exercise because it stimulates bone formation. You have compression on the bones with resistance training. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why that is. I love that for younger women. So my younger daughter does gymnastics. It's
Mm-hmm.
not lifting weights, but
Oh,
it's a lot
hard.
of body weight and compression and jumping. So all the things that will deposit bone mineral content, which is great
Yes.
for the rest of her life.
Yes.
And then the other things, again, we know that menopause, one of the things that everybody agrees is that bone mineral density will decrease quite
Mm-hmm.
rapidly during the menopause transition. So again, if you're resistance training in your 20s, 30s, 40s, going into this phase of life, you're going in with as much bone mineral density as you can. And then, of course, continuing with that stimulus, keeping the amount of muscle. I like to say the muscle is the bone. If you lose muscle mass, you lose bone mineral density. If you can
Yes.
maintain muscle, you can maintain your bone mineral density. Um,
Yes.
and I don't want to just make this all about lifting weights, a fitness lifestyle. So if you enjoy running, run, do that. But as I said earlier, and I think you agree, like I want to encourage you to also lift weights. But running
Yes.
is also very good. And I also, we need to mention this. This is where eating is also important. You can't be starving yourself in lifting weights, starving yourself in this having a fitness lifestyle. If you're not feeding yourself, that is also a very much of a risk factor for osteoporosis, osteopenia.
Well, I was going to talk to you about this because I personally thought I was in perimenopause at the age of 44. However, I was actually in low energy availability, which shows
Oh,
as exactly the same symptoms as perimenopause. So I was having hot flushes. I was starting to get some of the symptoms. And so I was like, oh, perimenopause. But actually, I was in low energy availability because I was at that stage training for the CrossFit Games, massive like training load, and there was a few other factors going on that, and so this is something that I think, and obviously I'm an athlete, but you don't need to be an athlete to fall into low energy availability. Like, and I think the change that we see, because as women, and it's our age group, the Gen Xers who have grown up with the super skinny supermodels who we just were conditioned to get on the scales and try and be as small as possible. We're the ones that then are trying to exercise more and eat less to change our body composition. And you don't have to be an athlete to fall into low energy availability, but it shows up exactly the same as menopause symptoms.
that's interesting. Yeah, so it fooled you.
Yeah, yeah, it did. And the irony is that I didn't know. I only like about a year ago, I actually fell into low energy availability again. I have you heard of High Rocks?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I did a high rocks race last year, and I managed to do very well. But in the process of it, because it was such a like another big training load, it's like that mixed hybrid of a lot of running and also lifting, and I just didn't feel myself correctly. And I want to say this that. I know more about food than the normal person, and yet I still found myself in this space. So it is very easy to do. If you're just putting out more than you're consuming, it's not a hard thing to find yourself in. So it wasn't until it happened again last year that the realization came that back when I thought I was starting perimenopause was actually not perimenopause. It was actually, this low energy availability. So my menopause story has completely changed. So I kind of now think probably around 48, when for me, I suffered with really sore elbows. So from lifting heavy, I just started getting these really sore elbows at about the age of 48. And that now is more of a marker of when I was really going through perimenopause rather than the earlier symptoms, if you like. So
Yes. Interesting.
yeah, so we might even be able to do another kind of unpack on low energy availability at another time. But I thought it's interesting to mention because it's not spoken about very often. And when you are fit, especially if you're competing and you're training a lot, at this stage, it's a really kind of blurry place to be where the symptoms are exactly the same. So, yeah,
That's a good point. If you're doing that in your 40s,
yes,
it's you could easily miss. Yeah, that's a great observation. That you would
yes,
only know through experience.
that's right. And honestly, like, so I'm a sports nutritionist as well. So I studied sports nutrition, studied all about low energy availability, about REDS, like, did not see myself, even though I had actually gone through it, did not even see myself in my experience until like a year ago where I had this light bulb moment. Like, Actually, I was in low energy availability. Like, so I speak about it from that point that, I have a lot of education around this now, yet I still found myself in this place. And once you have been in low energy availability before, you can slip into it a lot easier in the future. That's why, obviously, last year when I was doing high rocks, it obviously happened again, but you're at a higher risk. So this is something to be aware of as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's funny. Like you were seeing it, and like that's only in the textbooks.
Didn't even for 1 minute, only because I think my I had already, I was in perimenopause, like, so it wasn't, for me, I just didn't. And
Yeah,
actually, to be fair, when I study sports nutrition, when they go through like low energy availability, they talk about women losing their periods, but they don't realize, they're not talking about the 40-year-old athlete. They're talking about the 20-year-old athlete.
yeah,
So, so the they don't mention that it's the same symptoms as perimenopause. That wasn't, so maybe if that was taught, I might have had a bit of a light bulb then, but I didn't, because it was just talked about losing a period.
yeah,
And even when I was in low energy availability, I didn't lose my period. So that's something else, that you don't always lose your period when you're in low energy availability either. So these are some things to, another topic, but I just thought it's, you're talking to fitness
yep,
women who are
very
often
relevant.
athletes, and it's something to be mindful of.
Yeah, it's like you said, it speaks very much to a woman embracing a fitness lifestyle, especially if they're high rocks competitors, but
Yes.
if they're a little bit more in the endurance space, because a lot of the women that I typically serve, they only do resistance exercise. There, I have to do a
Yes.
lot of like, hey, what about your aerobic fitness? And I usually don't see that as much in that type of fitness person.
Yeah, I think like triathletes, Ironman, like those sort of people would really, like, I was doing CrossFit, so I suppose that mix, because and it was just the level of activity I was doing, like training 2 or 3 hours a day. So normal CrossFit, one hour a day, I don't think you would necessarily, have that problem. But 2 or 3 hours a day was like quite a big load. So yeah, but it's just something to be mindful of. I'm getting back to the bone mineral density. I've been really now encouraging women starting my programs, or when I'm working with them one-on-one, to get a DEXA scan. What are your thoughts on, getting a DEXA scan to find out where your bone mineral density and where your body kind of comp is at?
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of a DEXA scan because as it gives you all of the relevant information you need for someone who's embracing a fitness lifestyle.
Mm.
And not when you're 65, but I would say 40 would be a great time. And even if you don't get another one for 10 years, you have some type of baseline measure. So a DEXA scan, what I love about it, it gives you bone mineral density, bone mineral content. So there's your bone marker that you can be, now you can get, when you get one later, you're going to be able to say, ooh, I see a trend here that's not good, or maybe it is good. And then also body fat
Mm-hmm.
and lean mass. So that's one. I had two regrets relative to my wife's menopause experience, and we were very ignorant when this happened. I wish we had gotten a DEXA.
Mm-hmm.
I had DEXAs on my wife. Yeah, it was probably 15 years now, even more than that, probably like 20 years ago,
Okay.
when I was in grad school, because we had access to a DEXA. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing. I wish we had a DEXA. And I
Yeah.
wish I had gotten blood work with the sex hormones, because we hadn't had any of that. So
Mm.
that's what I just in my messaging. I regret that we didn't have blood work, and I regret that we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a DEXA scan on my wife. And I
Mm.
know I'm a visual learner, so when I see things like
Mm,
If I would have saw estradiol being really low, let's say when she was in her, going through this, that would have
mm,
triggered something.
mm,
Because instead it was just, hey, she wasn't, well, she had a lot of issues.
mm,
But again, I was ignorant. But if I would have saw them,
mm,
like, oh, whoa, it wasn't just a
mm,
theoretical. Well, maybe you're going through menopause. It would have been obvious
mm,
potentially, depending on the labs that we could have gotten.
mm. So people usually come to me because they want to lose the belly fat or they want to like build muscle or change their body composition. And I know women are listening into this because they're like, he's a fat loss researcher. We want to know how to lose the body fat. So what is your advice for women who maybe like for me, what happened is I got this belly fat overnight. It wasn't overnight, but it felt like, right? I woke up and I'm like, I felt 4 months pregnant. I'm like, where did that come from? So what is your advice for someone who is like frustrated? They're like, I want to change my body. What do I do?
Yeah, I don't want to give false hope and say what I'm about to say is going to solve all of your problems. I wish I could.
It's not
What I
easy.
Yeah, yeah. What I can say is we, you we want to embrace a fitness lifestyle. So let me phrase it differently. Let's check all of the boxes that we know have worked in a younger metabolically healthy population. Because if we're not doing all of the basics,
Mm-hmm.
then we don't know that it's preventable. We don't know that that the weight gain is inevitable. So what are those things? Well, I would say the first one is make sure that protein is optimized. We have research in menopausal women, whether they're dieting or not. When you increase protein to near optimal levels, you lose body fat and you gain muscle, even when you increase calories. So protein is the menopause nutrient, as you and I like to call it.
Yes.
So there's one thing. Protein is a body composition optimizer. The other thing is a resistance training, whether that's 1 day a week, 5 days a week, whatever it is it in your fitness routine? And
Mm-hmm.
then some form of aerobic exercise that keeps your body's ability to burn fat, keeps your cardiovascular health. The other great thing about aerobic exercise, it really helps with insulin sensitivity or metabolic health. And then I'm gonna add in sleep. If you um, I just released on my YouTube series, I think yesterday.
Yes.
I talked. Yeah, it's
I saw it.
three major like amazing studies on sleep, so well
Mm-hmm.
designed. If you are sleep deprived, the research
It's
says you
scary.
will gain fat, you will gain visceral fat, and you will suppress your body's ability to build muscle. So it works against you on every front possible.
Yes.
So
Scary.
do everything you can to optimize sleep or not to be sleep deprived. So
Mm-hmm.
embrace a fitness lifestyle, optimize protein intake, and try to get adequate sleep. Now, this is where I have to take the message to hormone replacement therapy because I think it's
Mm-hmm.
relevant.
Mm-hmm.
The What we know is women going through menopause are very likely to have sleep deprivation problems. HRT helps that. So
Mm-hmm.
HRT will help, whether it's estrogen or progesterone, both will help with sleep deprivation in most cases.
Yes.
Now that is not me saying you have to go on HRT. That's me saying if you're having problems sleeping, you should look into this as an option for yourself, and that's a conversation between you and your evidence based medical professional.
Yes.
Um, so that's what I would say. We have to embrace a fitness lifestyle. And then from a general nutrition standpoint, I would say try to avoid ultra processed foods.
Yes.
Um, or let me rephrase that. Try to not over consume because I
Right.
eat chocolate chip cookies, so I would be a hypocrite if I said don't ever. Now, if you never eat ultra processed foods, great.
Mm.
But Anecdotally, the best weight loss, fat loss diet that I'm seeing in women happens to be an anti-inflammatory Mediterranean style diet.
Yes.
I hope to be doing some case study research on that exact diet in women who are potentially weight loss resistant. And then let me also just go back to hormone replacement therapy. While that can help with sleep, I wish I could say that it really helps with fat gain, fat loss. What I found in the research is that some women who take estrogen or hormone replacement therapy, some of them lose body fat, some
Mm,
gain body fat, and
mm,
some it has no effect. And
mm,
that's relative to body fat levels. So it is
mm,
not something that I would say, oh, this will definitely help you lose fat. Some women it does,
mm,
some women it does not. And just
mm,
spoke to one of our subjects in one of our studies this morning. She gained
mm,
10 pounds as soon as she started HRT. So I can't make any promises with HRT relative to body composition
mm.
optimization.
I think that comes back to, and I say this for nutrition as well, that it's very individualized. Like I'm taking HRT, and when I started, I noticed some changes in my body, and that is depending on how you respond to hormones. So it's the same. I had a few little minor symptoms, like from starting it, that other people may not experience. And I think that's very unique to the individual, just like nutrition, really. Some people can't eat dairy. Some people, can't,
Yeah.
this sort of thing. So I suppose the one thing, and I agree with everything you've said, two things I wanted to kind of expand on. One was I personally pretty much had to really minimize my sugar content. Like sugar, it's like I looked at it and I might as well just have put it straight on my belly. Like it's like my metabolism for sugar was like not, I don't know, like that definitely changed like in this stage. So I personally find if I keep my sugar, like it's not that I never eat sugar, but it's very minimal compared to what, when I was younger, and the good news is there's lots of kind of sugar free and options, so you still can enjoy things that with the options we have. Um, and the other thing I was going to say to you was, you know, all of those things I totally agree with. I suppose when we're looking at fat loss, what are your thoughts on? Because I definitely think the calories in, calories out has to be applied, and that's what I see helping women lose body fat and change their body composition. So I think something I see very often is that women want to change their body composition. How do you know if you're having a good day if you don't know how many calories you're consuming, or that you're tracking? So for me personally, I'm a big advocate of tracking your food, because otherwise, how do you know if you're on track? Um,
Yes. It's a
that
great
sort of
point. That goes back to like just the foundational principles: a fitness lifestyle, optimized protein intake. I should have added, make sure you're not over consuming calories, which is what you just said. Now, I have a question for you. You said you gained weight
mm,
relatively quickly. Did you end up losing that extra weight gain or
I
not?
did.
Not.
Yeah, no, I did.
And what did
And
you what did you attribute it to?
So I think, to be honest, I think I went through a very highly stressed period of my life, like just this, and so in this 6 month period, the high stress that I was dealing with, I think that was the tipping point that created this, like I was like, what has happened, kind of thing to me. And also, if I looked back to what happened for me, I was trying to qualify for the CrossFit Games. So when I, like, kind of going back to my initial 44, thinking I was in perimenopause, actually low energy availability. A few years later, I left CrossFit because I didn't want to do that anymore. I didn't want to compete at that level anymore. I was still exercising, but I realized I wasn't like lifting heavy. So, in this period of time, I went through this very high stress. I was exercising, but not resistance training where I was pushing myself to build muscle. So, I think maybe, and not prioritizing protein. So I wouldn't have been eating enough protein. So a combination, I think, of, and then of course at that stage, not sleeping well. So, like you mentioned, like ticking the boxes, a number of different things contributed at once, sort of thing. That's what I think
And
caused the situation.
would you suggest that you decreased the volume of your overall exercise and you
Yes.
lost the weight?
Um, so to lose the weight, I had to really look. This is when I really had to go like, what is going on? And I did go to the doctor, and at this, when I went, she kind of went HRT straight away, but I didn't understand what it was. So because I didn't understand, and she didn't kind of explain it well enough for me to get a grip of it. If I don't understand something, I'm not going to do it. So then that's
Uh,
when I went down kind of the lifestyle route, and I started doing some intermittent fasting to like change up things, and I started understanding that my diet had to change, and that kind of crossed over me starting to study nutrition because my initial outcome for that was I wanted to be a sports nutritionist and help other masters athletes like myself. So to study sports nutrition, I had to do nutrition first. So in the process of studying nutrition, I actually started learning like about protein and carbs and all the things that I've been doing but didn't understand because I just had someone telling me what to do. And so when my studies were coming through, one I had to do a 12-week case study on myself. So I chose protein and menopause to do, and so that's when I had the light bulb moment because I had to put myself in the situation of I was hitting 2 grams per body weight, and I was like the first couple of weeks I was like, this is hard, like I don't know how to do. But then I started seeing these incredible changes, like my body composition started changing and my energy, and I was sleeping better. And this is before I did HRT. So that was really my kind of trigger to so I started changing the lifestyle aspects. And then like in the last year, I did start going on HRT, mainly
okay.
for musculoskeletal issues, actually, because of the I was getting these sore elbows and kind of tweaks, and I kept getting sore, and I had plantar fasciitis, all these things popping up, and I was like, if this is hormonal, I'm definitely because I wasn't at that stage. Once I focused on the lifestyle and made changes, I wasn't having hot flushes anymore, and I wasn't like I lost the belly fat, and like everything was under control. So I didn't need to go on HRT necessarily for my symptoms, but I had these sore elbows and these body aches and things, and so that's what made me go on HRT. And you know,
Yep. Yep.
yeah. So that's how it happened for me. Yeah, but I also know that you can do it. So I've been in that space. So and this is where I know so many women are frustrated, and so I know you can come through. And I wish I'd have taken more photos when I was actually, because of course I was self-conscious and I was covering myself up and not taking videos, and because I didn't want to show, I didn't feel good. But I wish I had have to compare and show people, the difference, because you can do it.
And when you said you also experimented with intermittent fasting,
Yes.
was that helpful or harmful for your situation?
I think it was very helpful, and I still teach women about it. I think it was helpful for a couple of reasons. One, I think, like I mentioned to you at the start, I definitely had a bit of insulin resistance. So, which basically comes back to just not being metabolically flexible, right? So, when I tried to start intermittent fasting, I found it really difficult, and so that was a bit of a flag that this insulin resistance was maybe like starting to play out. So that helped me break that down, that insulin resistance, and I think what it also helped me do once I learned how many calories I needed to eat, it helped me manage them better. So I am someone who really loves eating food. And if you give me this like little portion like this, I don't feel satisfied. Like an hour later, I'm going to want to eat again. So what I found was that if I didn't eat till 11 a.m., then I had a good, decent breakfast. I could actually manage my calories better in the window because when I ate, I felt full and satisfied, and then my
Yep.
brain just switched off, if that made sense. So I think it was a dual effect, like really probably now if I still use intermittent fasting, it's to manage my calorie intake because I like eating a lot of food when I eat.
Yep. I'm the same way.
Yeah. Well, I am conscious of your time. I know that you're a very busy man. And where can we learn more about you? Tell us where we can find you. I will obviously link to all of your information in the show notes.
Yeah. So I have a website that's billcampbellphd.com. That is where I offer my research review, which I think
Which I
you are
love.
a
I love
subscriber.
it. I love it. I've got more research to go through.
Yes. No, we gotta have you. I gotta would ask you to be an expert contributor at some point. Would you be
Oh, I'd
willing to
love
do
to
that?
do that. Yeah,
All
I'd
right.
love to do that.
Yeah, it seems like you would be perfect for that. And you got 900 women in your protein challenge. Like that is
Yes.
awesome. Um,
Yes.
so my research review, it's I summarize research, and well, actually, you tell our listeners what it is. I'm curious how you would explain it.
I love it. So, Dr. Bill sends out a couple of research papers each month and he summarizes it. And then there's a couple of guest contributors that also give us like their examples and their opinions based on how they would use it and their thoughts and processes around it. So, you don't also just get Dr. Bill's like, kind of breakdown, you get a couple of other opinions to be able to look at. So I find it very helpful because, of course, I'm teaching and it just helps me stay up to date with the latest that's going on in the space. So I definitely recommend anyone jump in because it's really so worthwhile.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. And it's the research that I summarize, it's almost always about either building muscle or losing body fat. So it's very body composition focused. Um, so that's my website. That's billcampbellphd.com. My Instagram is Bill Campbell PhD, and my YouTube. So right now I have a menopause fitness YouTube series. I'm dropping
Yes.
an episode every week. That is also Bill Campbell PhD.
And I definitely recommend everyone go listen to that. I'm using your videos in my program now. So because you
Awesome.
explain it so well, I don't have to worry. I'm going to just be adding the series into my program. So, it just marries beautifully with everything that I'm already teaching. So thank you for your
Good.
work. And thank you for your work in the space because it's exciting to be able to know that the research is finally being done and we are getting answers and we're moving forward in the space, and I'm excited to be part of your new research coming out being I'm going to help you with that. So
Yes. Yeah, I'm going to send you the link to the survey probably in a couple days.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for being here. Like I said, I've been really looking forward to this, and I know this information is going to help so many women. So thanks again, Bill.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.